2, 1. Hi there, folks. This is Jim the Keys bartender, and I am fortunate today, to be here with the mayor of Key West, Teri Johnston. Say hi, Teri. The Honorable Mayor of Key West. Are you still
Hi,
there?
Jim.
Oh, good. Hi.
I'm still here.
Yep, and Papa Joe's joining us also, one of our regular co-hosts.
And I'm here.
Okay, great. I'd like to thank you, Mayor Johnston, for agreeing to be on the show and answer some questions. To start out, I wanted to give a brief synopsis of the timeline. On March 19th, the Miami Herald reported the first COVID-19 case in the Keys, and it was a resident who had traveled back from the United Kingdom. And on later that day, all hotels were closed, and 50% of the restaurants were held to 50% of capacity. And I'm going to ask you eventually. I think your timeline was you jumped ahead of the curve, Mayor. But on March 27th, the county established checkpoints on US 1 and State Road 905 to restrict people from outside the Keys to come in, and not as much just to keep people out as to keep our system from being overtaxed, because we only have like 130 beds and 9 ventilators in the whole county. Now, to this date, as of this today, May 7th, there's been a total of 79 cases, 3 deaths. There were 1,487 tests performed, about 2% of the population. We've had 5 consecutive days of no reported cases. And the health officer for Monroe County, Bob Eady, implores residents to continue best practices, implementing safe practices in the county. And in several of your public addresses, Mayor, you thank the citizens of Key West for complying with safe practices. Now, it's been over 100 years since the U.S. experienced a pandemic. And in 1920, Key West, your population was 20,000. Now it's 27,000. You have your population density of Key West is just a little under what is in Fort Lauderdale, but you've had very low rate of infection there. And I have to give you kudos for your actions and what you did. Did Key West was ahead of the curve on this, wasn't it, Mayor?
Well, we were, and the reason for that, Jim, I've explained it a number of times on the radio, but when you take a look at our density and you take a look at the size of our island, take a look at the fact that Lower Keys Medical Center is actually 167 beds, and you accurately, we're talking about the very limited number of ventilators that we have. But since the outbreak in Hunan in November, to the point where we closed down Key West, we had welcomed in that time frame about 1,300,000 visitors onto our island, in our restaurants, in our hotels, integrating with our residents. And that's what brought us to immediate action, is when you take a look at how vulnerable we are as an island, and a very densely, close-knit, close neighborhoods type of population. We acted quicker than probably many other people, and a number of times people have said, well, you came in front of the county. Well, we have to understand that Key West is the urban center of Monroe County. The county is dealing with Big Pine, Sugarloaf, some more rural areas. We're dealing with a cruise ship port. We're dealing with an airport that brings in about 900,000 passengers a year from all over the world, and we're just so close knit that we decided that it was imperative that we act very, very quickly.
Well, I think you answered the question. I was going to ask you, when you came to office, I'm sure you contemplated other emergencies you probably have, hurricanes being number one. Was this ever on an inkling for you that you'd have to deal with something like this?
No, I don't think anyone ever thought that you would be faced with a situation like this. And we keep trying to get our arms around and compare this to a hurricane. And it's just not even close to that type of animal, because you don't have a start and you don't have a finish date of this type of global pandemic. And you can look for relief from your economy picking up from other areas of the world. Well, there isn't another area of the world that hasn't been impacted by this global pandemic. So it's a once in a lifetime event for most of us on Earth right now. And I will say it's been challenging, but I would not go through it in any other community but Key West, because, as you said before, our residents have been wonderful. They have heeded the warnings. They have exhibited personal responsibility on the most part, and we've just had a really good team effort, which is what's contributed to the fact. I think we're up to 80 cases now, Jim, in the county, but realistically, that's minuscule compared to the rest of the world, and we still have probably 14 states that are on the rise as far as COVID-19 infections. We have some states that are on the downward side. The state of Florida is actually considered to be holding its own, and that's with areas like Monroe County doing very well, areas like Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach doing relatively poorly at this stage, but working to get some better numbers. And their hospitalizations, by the way, are starting to stabilize, and they're starting to see just a touch of a downward trend. But until they get their testing under control and their numbers under control, we are very, very thankful that we had the informational checkpoint there to keep us locals just locals.
Well, that was pretty much what my questions were. I was going to ask you about which is great, whether that these safe practices, maintaining the 6 feet of distance, making sure that restaurants were just takeout only, and the checkpoints, though it caused some hard feelings for some people initially up in the upper Keys. We've had some protesters up here, and it did set a wrong tone maybe for a tourist destination, the way we would tell people to stay away, but there was a reasoning behind it why we did those things. It wasn't to lock ourselves in like the parenthetical 1950s bomb shelter where you go down there when there's going to be a nuclear war and you lock out the rest of the world. We were doing it to keep the residents safe and also not to tax the people on the mainland with extra people that would have to go up there. But
right, and you just mentioned that, Jim. One of our basic premises was the fact that we're sitting down here at the end of the state on a 2-lane highway with a 167-bed hospital, limited healthcare personnel down here, and we're sitting here with 11 ICU beds in Lower Keys Medical Center. So it was imperative that we not have the spikes that many of the other municipalities saw around the United States.
Okay. Well, how long do you recently? Now, we're going to get in later on. We're talking about the phased opening approach, but there was a little lessening recently this past week because of the governor's. What was that? What was Governor DeSantis' order that he passed that was loosening things up? But we're going to talk particularly about there was an event that occurred, and it happened up here too. So just so you know, it's not just you. I was watching a local restaurant my wife and my daughter and I were at the Caribbean Club looking at the sunset. It wasn't open. We had our dog, and we were taking pictures. And we looked over, and there was a restaurant that was open. They had a band playing. There was people dancing. They were drinking at the bar. And it looked like they weren't practicing social distancing. And today I see on social media that on the Sunset Pier there was, what appeared to be people dancing, not practicing those social distancing and wearing masks. And I didn't see a mask in the whole picture. So
I would love to comment on that if I could.
Yes.
That's just a lack of responsibility, And, if you do not want to take care of yourself, that's one thing. But please, do not infect other people. And this type of virus is so unique in the fact that it's highly spread by asymptomatic people. So you could be walking anywhere and look at somebody who doesn't exhibit one symptom who are positive for the virus. So in order not to spread, in order not to surge, we need to stay vigilant. Yes, we are trying to offer, to relax some of our protective measures because we have been cooped up now for 7 weeks on a 2x4 island. But our relaxation should never be misconstrued as we're out of the woods here, because we're not. What we'd like to try and do is to give you some situations where perhaps we can address our mental health as well as our physical health and try and do both. But both of those take a maturity and a level of responsibility and respect for every other resident on our island. And I implore everyone, please do not lighten up on any protective measure. In fact, be more vigilant than we ever have, because we are lightening up. We have some people out and about that were not out and about for the last 7 weeks. So if anything, we're more vulnerable to the virus right now than we have been for the last 7 weeks.
I'm going to allow my co-host Joe. Are you there? Do you have?
Yeah. Hey. Yeah, Mayor. I don't know if you read, but Miami Beach last week, they opened up South Point right after, of course, the governor loosened up on some of the restrictions. And after giving out, I believe, nearly 10,000 warnings to people who would not comply with those, they had to close South Point and kind of shoo everyone away. Is there, and is there any plan that should there be a refusal to comply out in the open, to take any kind of action, or do you feel warning them and closing those venues is the better rate?
That's really a good question, because we've run into the same situation. Clearly not on the level of our northern counties, but violating an emergency order, and all these are emergency orders, is a second-degree misdemeanor, and it's punishable by 60 days in jail or a $500 fine. And we've had some citations down here. We had citations for illegal vacation rentals. We are trying not to be draconian, but when somebody doesn't have enough common sense to physical distance in a global pandemic, you really need a stern conversation with them. And we do have some people that we have removed from the beach. We have some restaurants that we've given a warning, and the next one, we will close them down. And we really are taking measures because it's a serious virus. So here's a fascinating thing that the 27,000 residents that we have in the city of Key West have kind of all been deputized now as our code compliance department. So, if they're seeing people that aren't social distancing, we get a telephone call, and we will send over either a police officer or a code compliance officer, and we will correct that situation. But if somebody is moving into a vacation rental on May 6th, people know that we have been under restrictions and have suspended all new check-ins since April 1st. So they're on the telephone with us, and we make everyone aware that we have a lot of code compliance officers out on our streets right now who are just individual residents who want to stay safe. And
right.
I think most people are bright enough to know that if we're not following these protective measures, and if we do have a surge, we are going to go right back to being shut up tight. And this time it will be for a much longer period of time. And I think although people are anxious to get out, people are anxious to get our economy rolling again, people are also bright enough to know that if we do it too soon, if we do it recklessly, we will be right back where we were for a longer period of time.
Right. And when we get around to opening these thing up, and actually before that, I want to talk a little about testing, if you don't mind, Mayor.
Mm-hmm. Sure, please.
How hard has it been to conduct testing? Have you had enough tests? Or are you finding testing or the actual test hard to come by?
Yeah. Well, the answer to that is no. We do not have enough tests, and some of the reasons for that is because of our successes and our low numbers. We've had tests that were logistically heading to Key West and Monroe County that have been redirected to hotspots. And when you think about it, that's the right thing. It truly is. We've kept our numbers low. We've kept our curve. We've damped it down as low as we can, and we've kept it there. So the test really should go to areas that are hotspots. Now it's starting to open up a little bit more. But I will tell you this, it's been a very confusing situation also, because probably 5-6 times a week I will get a telephone call from somebody who says, I can get you 5,000 tests. And I'll say, are they FDA approved? No, they're NIH approved. Well, which kind of tests are they? Are they antibody tests, or are they, the COVID-19 tests, or what type of testing are they? So there's a lot of activity right now going on in the testing market. To answer your question, we are picking up on testing. We now have CHI that's coming down to Key West, and they are doing testing once a week. We have a number of physicians in their clinical settings that are doing testing. We're doing some testing at the hospital before all of our elective surgeries right now, so we're doing about 300 more tests a month just at the hospital level. We're doing testing at the Department of Health. Is it anywhere near the numbers of tests that we would like in order to make solid, valid decisions? No. The answer is no. We are going with the best information that we have right now in order to move forward. But no, we would like to do mass testing, and then we would like to do contact tracing. And I think that's going to be the most important thing, is who have these positive cases been in touch with, been in contact with over the last 14 days, and let's get to them and let's make sure that they are quarantining, so that we have a handle on exactly who has had the coronavirus already, who is positive right now, and who have they been in touch with. And at that point, I know I, as well as every other elected official who are making decisions right now for the future, would have a much greater confidence level in our decision-making capabilities.
Well,
absolutely. Jim, just one more.
Yep.
I was just curious, of course, being a retired state trooper, my heart is always with first responders.
Yeah.
Have the hospital personnel and the fire and law enforcement, have they been finding it easy to come by PPE and making sure that the men and women out there are fully equipped?
Yeah, it's been a struggle, quite frankly, to get the right equipment. We do a check 3 times a week with all of our first responders to make sure that they do have PPE. We've had some very generous people in the community that have gotten equipment, and right now I think we're in a pretty good spot. We're getting our first responders right now. They are being tested. We're starting to bring in city employees next week, and we are offering testing there. So we're getting to a better spot. But it was really hairy for a long period of time, because we are, our EMTs, our firefighters, our police officers, all of those individuals are in harm's way, and we made sure that if we had PPE, it was going to our first responders, and our community reacted very well. If they had N95 masks, they made sure that our first responders had them. We made cloth mask and put bandanas on, and we created face coverings in the community that were made of cloth so that any of the surgical level equipment stayed with our healthcare professionals and our first responders. So we're better. Are we perfect? No, but we're getting there.
Well, excellent.
Mayor, I think you guys both, Joe and May, you're spot on about the importance of testing. There is confusion between people with the antibody test telling someone that they had at one time had COVID-19 and had recovered, or they currently are infected. And there's the other one of people, the confusion with people, regular people not really understanding what it means to be asymptomatic, that you can be infected and not have any of the symptoms and then you could be spreading that, and just explaining it to people. They're the ones that think that maybe, and it goes all the way up to the top here in the United States with them ignoring that. One of his military attachés, the president was just tested positive for COVID-19. So I imagine that's going to be a problem with people when they're gathering. So when we're screening people, you were talking about screening. In the beginning, people were screening. They were taking their temperature. You were testing just whether people were manifesting symptoms. There was no proof that they had it or not. They could have had it, and there was no way of stopping it. But that's neither here nor there. Now we're moving along to the phased opening approach. So Monroe County, we're a tourist economy. Key West is the center of it. And since March 19th, it's a dramatic slowdown, longer and harder than any of the modern hurricanes. And we had one of the largest influxes, at least in the state and nationwide, of people applying for unemployment. And we had the state government being somewhat, I call it what it is, slow to respond. With saying saying we will respond, saying out canned letters, saying we're not ready. They could have said it's going to take 6 weeks because it's 7 weeks out, and now it's starting to turn. The wheels are starting to turn now, but 7 weeks is a long time in a modern society, and they did a lot better during the Depression. You, as a mayor of Key West, I know that the resources that are involved that alleviate unemployment and make the benefits reside with the state. What access to resources, what resources does the city of Key West have to alleviate some of that suffering by the unemployed in Key West? That's such a good question. And if I could just spend a couple of seconds on the unemployment system, because I think this COVID-19 has really uncovered such a flaw in our system at the state level. First of all, we've identified that we have some of the lowest weekly benefits of any state in the United States. Second of all, they're for the shortest period of time. They cover the shortest period of time. And I think we can, most of us can agree at this point, the system was set up not to pay unemployment benefits at all. And we were woefully unprepared, woefully understaffed. We kept talking to the federal level, and our Congress representatives were saying, look, your state has the money. It can't get it doled out. So with that, it didn't make any difference. People were on the telephone for hours. They would get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and spend 3 or 4 hours on the system. We have been in constant contact with our representative Holly Rasheim, who has been a world of information, but she's had a real challenge, trying to get them up and running. Basically, they had to hire, all new people and move the system out of a couple of departments and move it into different departments. And they actually shut down the system at certain periods of time just in order,
to try and get it somewhat functioning so that they could address the crush of applications that we've got. Having said that, we're starting to see in the city of Key West, we're starting to see people getting their benefits. But that has been within the last week and a half, I need to say. People got their care $1,200. That came out pretty much as anticipated, but the benefits were very, very slow coming out. And the devastating thing there was the fact that now we're going on 7 weeks, so now we're going on 2 rent cycles. So for 2 months now, people have not been able or have struggled to pay their basic rent. Here's what the city of Key West has done with our resources. First of all, we said how can we best help, and our thought process was that first of all, people need to be fed. So we've taken $150,000 away from programs that we canceled, that we postponed, and we have basically put that money into our food banks to get our people fed. We have, in the city of Key West, we have about 140 businesses that rent from the city of Key West. So what we've done is we've gone into a rent deferment for the month of April, May, and June, and we are deferring those payments, starting next January, but those payments can be made over the next 24 months to try and create a safety net so that we don't have individual evictions from companies. But again, we have very, very little help as far as rent abatement for the individual service worker. So we have been trying to convey that we'd like to lead by example. So our tenants, we're trying to abate their rent for 3 months and putting them on payment plans, and we are hoping that the individual landlords will do the same and work with their service industry people as we get through these next several months. But that's basically what the city of Key West is doing.
Well, that's great. Hey, Joe, I think Joe has a question about the phased reopening of for the Monroe County and Key West in particular.
Yeah, as far as Key West, Mayor, with the phased reopening, the usual suspects as far as planned events, the boat races, Fantasy Fest, stuff like that. Even though that's towards the end of the summer, it's really around the corner as far as COVID-19 is. How do you see that happening? How do you figure that into the opening?
Well, right now, all of those events would have to change radically in their configurations because they're all based on mass gatherings. We can't have mass gatherings. There isn't any way. We were just talking to the mayor of Miami the other day about, what are you doing? And he's saying, well, I'm trying to figure out what do you do with a 65,000 person stadium? Do you allow 15,000 people in there and social distance? How do you handle that? But right now, our major events would have to change radically. And here's what I think is going to have to happen, Joe. I think we're going to have a vaccine. There isn't going to be a comfort level for people standing, 6 inches from other people and functioning the way that we functioned before March of this year until we have a vaccine, until people are socially comfortable and confident that they can leave that event and not have COVID-19. So we are looking at Fantasy Fest is the end of October. The organizers of Fantasy Fest need an answer from us by July 1st, and we are meeting on that every single day to try and make a determination. Many of the things that we have planned right now have been either canceled or we're postponing them. And I think probably one safe thing is that you postpone things to the early part of 2021 where there reportedly will be a vaccine out that will protect people and keep people healthy. And until that point, until we know where our numbers are going, and a lot of that is going to be determined by how well we do soft openings, how responsive we are to our protective measures, and how much we abide by those, and the fact that can we keep our numbers under control. And that will answer a lot about the future events where it is geared on mass tourism.
Okay. Well, with the phased openings, where do hotels figure in? Hotels and bars figure into it. Is phase 3 or is it phase 3 where hotels could open back up?
Yep, and it is. And it's hotels, it's vacation rentals, it's bars, and these are all areas that we've been working with our hotels now for about the last 4 weeks, and many of the flagship hotels like the Marriotts and the Hiltons and the Hyatts, they've had teams that have been working on protective measures now since the very first outbreak, so they're in pretty good shape and can feel reasonably confident that if we gave them a week's notice, 10 days notice, that they could get their staff back. They've got their PPE already ordered, or it's in-house. They have their protocols in place. They need to do some training and put some policies in place. But with about a week or 10 days, they could get up and running. The vacation rental market down here have been doing the same things. We created task force at both the county level and the city level to say, okay, let's bring the industry in and say, what do we need to do in order to create a confident, comfortable customer base so that we can welcome people back in safely and we're not infecting the residents. Working diligently with all of those individuals. And it's been fascinating as we started this process because most of the industry have come up with more stringent measures than what we had thought of as the city of Key West. So we're very confident that when we get to that point where the governor and we at the county and city level say yes, hotels and vacation rentals can open up, we're going to be able to do that safely. But I think the next phase, right now where we're at is we're at restaurants at 25% capacity and all the protective measures, including taking temperatures at the door, are in place. The golf course, we've opened up with, one person per golf cart, nobody's touching the flag. You just have to touch a cone at the hole. So we're doing different things there. But we have opened up museums, things where you don't have mass tourism and you're not on top of each other. So far, so good with those things. We have opened up our beach. We've opened up Truman Waterfront Park. People are out there exercising right now, exhibiting social distancing. Our next one will be to go into some more non-essential services like barbershops and hair salons and nail salons and things of a personal nature. And I think after that, we will certainly take a look at bars, hotels, and vacation rentals.
Okay, well, there's one huge critical factor to the success of Duval Street, and it is the mass gatherings of people, is the cruise industry. So,
Yep.
We're not even sure when cruises will be viable on their own, like whether the cruise companies will be able to cruise again. When can you envision a time where there is a robust enough screening that you're able to allow several thousand people to disembark a cruise ship?
Well, it's interesting you asked that question because we had a conference call today with the cruise industry, and there is rumors that Carnival will be, Carnival would like to come to the Port of Key West in early August, but there are other ships that are looking to come to the city of Key West first. Prior to that, and according to the conversation we had today, I think that there is still a level of uncomfort from the CDC based on the protective measures that the cruise ships have put into place. And according to the representative that we talked to today, one of the basic tenets of keeping this virus at bay is social distancing. Well, you can't social distance on a cruise ship. I mean, it's just physically impossible by the layout of the ship. And it really is geared around mass gatherings and masses of individuals. So it's going to be a topic of conversation because we also have a movement in Key West, and we have always had a divide between those who feel cruise ships are beneficial to Key West and would like to see them coming, and we have also a group of citizens and businesses who don't garner any benefit and really are very concerned about the environmental impact of the ships and the quality of life impact of the ships and the numbers of mass tourism that are created when we have 3 cruise ships in town at one time. So we're in the process of having a conversation about that, and we're garnering numbers because we need to have a conversation based on facts. Exactly what do cruise ships do economically for the city of Key West? And we have been operating under a great deal of anecdotal information in the past. This time we're gonna work off of facts, and we're going to have a thoughtful conversation about what kind of Key West do we want to be on the other side of the COVID-19 virus.
Well, you know what? That's great that it's like you read my mind because I was going to mention the robust petition drive that's been coming about the cruise industry. But there is a legitimate debate between the economics and the health part. Is there anything else you'd like to address like that? I wanted to move on to lighter topics and more hopeful topics.
Please. I'm ready for that one.
Oh, you are ready? That's great. That's great. So, I mean, obviously prior to COVID-19, you had plans. I mean, I'm sure there were some big plans for Key West. Are you able to even contemplate any big capital projects or things you were planning prior to COVID-19?
Here's the fascinating thing because we had a number of capital projects that we had slated for the end of this year and the early part of next year, and one of them was the fact that we wanted to revitalize Duval Street. Duval Street is our iconic corridor for the city of Key West, and the last time that we put any type of considerable income into that street was during the bicentennial. So it's long overdue. When the virus hit and when we shut everything down, the first week, and during that time we started calculating revenue losses because the city is heavily dependent on our tourism revenue generated. So we started calculating our losses. But we sat down the very first week and said we will never in our lifetime have an opportunity to repave Duval Street like we have right now with our businesses closed. So we bid out repaving Duval Street. We went down. We've been repainting the historic street lamps, the curbs. We've been doing ADA improvements there, and we have been working like banshees while we have this unfortunate opportunity to do that because we will never have another time when we don't interrupt businesses like we do right now. So we're moving full steam ahead on that. In fact, we start the milling and paving of Duval on Monday, May 13th. And hopefully we will be done in a couple weeks, and right after that be safely welcoming back visitors. We are moving ahead with our strategic plan because now more than ever, we need a roadmap because we're in new, strange, different times, different level of revenue sources, maybe different businesses on the horizon. So now, more than ever, coming out of this COVID-19, we need a strong 3, 5, 10-year plan for the city of Key West. So we're moving forward on that. Some of our capital projects have been put off. Many have not, because we're still facing sea level rise, the impacts of sea level rise in Key West. So we are moving forward on those projects. Other projects, feel-good projects, we are putting on the back burner. On day one, we went into a hiring freeze. On day one, we said, if you had in your budget a new car for next year, take it out. A new bucket truck for $163,000, take it out. We're not, people that are retiring, we're not replacing. And we went into an austerity mode the very first case of COVID that we had. But yes, we are moving forward with some projects, and the projects that we are going to need with the new Key West that's going to come out on the other side of COVID-19 to move forward in a thoughtful manner.
Wow. Well, that is very heartwarming to see, a city doing something that, not instead of reacting. It's just, a lot of the restaurant I work for is taking the taking the opportunity to do improvements and upgrading and doing maintenance and things like that. And just like some people at home too, when if you think about it, at home you're out of work, the people have been working out, eating healthy, baking more. It's you either get. What was that line? Are you a fan of the movies, Mayor Johnston?
Yes, I am.
Okay, the movie Shawshank Redemption. It's kind of who is the guy? Joe, help me. Morgan Freeman. Morgan Freeman. He said his line was "Get busy living or get busy dying."
Exactly. It's been an interesting pause in all of our lives, hasn't it?
Yes, it has. And I want to thank you for ending with that note of hope. And I want to thank Joe for joining in there. Thanks, Joe. Are you still there?
You're welcome. Thank you, Mayor. This has been great.
You're welcome, Joe.
Yes, and I've been down there before, and I hope to be down there again to do a show, and hopefully I'll get to talk to you again in brighter times and sunnier days. So I mean, it's pretty sunny.
I would love
it's
that.
It's pretty sunny today, but yeah,
it is a beautiful day out there today, and I will tell you this, gentlemen, that this has brought out the best of Key West. We're always good in an emergency, but the number of people that are stepping forward, and if they have it to give, they're giving. If they don't have it to give, they're volunteering, and it's just these types of situations just bring the cream to the top, and we have seen it every single day, and I hope that we can retain those feelings once we're on the other side of COVID-19.
That's great. And I'd have to say Key West is in very capable hands right now, and I look forward to seeing the 2021 being a great success for you. I always enjoy watching. I'm not a big person going out on New Year's Eve, but I expect CNN to be down there to watch the dropping of the shoe. And I wanted to be. If someday I wanted to do a show from there on New Year's Eve. The Florida Keys Bartender Show. I know I can't be in the shoe because I know there's a person that goes in there, but I'd like to get my picture taken in the shoe.
Well, that would be sushi, and there's no room for you and sushi in that same shoe.
I know. Well, I'm not a small guy at all, but if they could just get me in the shoe just prior, maybe a day before or something, I would like just a picture, or near the shoe, however close.
Well, if you call Joey Schroeder from the 801 Bourbon Bar, I'm sure that he can get you in close to that shoe and some photo opportunities.
Yeah, and you know what? I don't drink, Mayor, so I'd be safe. I'm not hustling for a drink or anything like that. I'm not a drinker. I drink club soda. So I'd like to thank you again. Thank you for from your coming on for your busy schedule. We will have this show up. You will be available for listen on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, all over the place, and in Europe even. We have a burgeoning listenership in the Netherlands, but most of our listeners, 50% of our listeners are in the Florida Keys and South Florida, but we have Central
Great.
Florida also. So I'm glad that a lot of the people that love the Keys will get a chance to see that we're going to be doing well in the next couple of months. Thanks again.
We are. We are. And thanks for the opportunity, Jim.
Oh, my pleasure. And have a great day and a better tomorrow.
Thank you. You also.
You're welcome. Okay, Joe. I'm going to say goodbye to you, Joe, too.
All right. That sounds
I will
good
talk
me.
to you later. Okay, my
Okey-doke.
friend?
That was an excellent show, man.
Okay. Well, we're still on the air. Talk to you later.
I know. I'm just telling you. I'll
Okay.
tell everyone. That was a great show.
I'm playing the music. Stay on, Joe. I'm playing
All
playing
right.
the music. Hold on. Okay. Mayor, are you still there? No? Okay, Joe, you still there?
I am.
Okay. Oh, that was great, wasn't it?
It really was, man. That she was. She sounds like she's
Very
plugged
genuine.
in.
Very genuine, very capable person.
Yeah.
I was really surprised. I thought she was smart, but I didn't realize how steady a hand she had. Oh my God! You know who she reminds me of? In the best sense. In the best sense, she's as brilliant. Who I think's a brilliant woman, Nancy Pelosi.
From a tackling the issues as